everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to show you how you can create a realistic looking tiger's eye in pastel pencils. This is a really great tutorial for learning how to create soft, realistic fur and create eyes that look 3D. For those of you that don't know me, I am Alex Marie. I'm an animal and pet portrait artist based in the UK. If you like my work, you can check out my Etsy store where I create high quality prints and cards of my artwork. For this tutorial you'll need a few different pastel pencils. I'm using mostly Carbothellos, but it really doesn't matter what brand you use as long as you have some of the basic colours. You'll need a couple of brown pencils, a black pencil and a dark blue pencil, a range of orange and reddish brown tones. Again, it really doesn't matter on the exact colour names, as long as you have some colours that resemble what's on the reference photo, you'll be absolutely fine for this tutorial. You will also need a yellow, a light yellow and a green for the base colours of the eye, a light blue for adding some nice kind of sky reflections in the fur and the eye. If you find that your colours are getting a bit muddy or looking a bit green, because we are using complementary colours, then a couple of warm pink tones will really help to counteract that. And then just a couple of greys and a white pencil. And lastly, a couple of blending stumps. As you can see, mine have been well loved. These aren't actually necessary, you can literally just use your fingers instead to blend. I just had these on hand. The paper that I recommend using is pastel matte paper. This is a very famous pastel paper and one of my all-time favourites, as it can take many layers and you get such a nice soft finish with it. I know that in some countries it is hard to get a hold of, so just any kind of sanded pastel paper will do for this tutorial. The techniques will be very similar. The reference that I'm using is from Pixabay. You can find the link to the picture in the description box below. So to start with, I'm going to draw a basic outline with a white pencil just to kind of get an idea of where everything should be on the page. You may find that it makes your life a lot easier when you know where to put your colours. I'm also just freehanding it, but you can trace it if it's easier for you. I'm then going in with a really dark blue just to outline the darkest areas in the picture. This includes all of the black fur and the dark areas of the eyes. With pastels you tend to work dark to light because you can layer light colours over dark colours, which is really great for creating depth and giving your work dimension. The reason I'm using a dark blue rather than a black is because black by itself can actually look really flat. So instead I'm adding the dark blue and then going in with some black in the darkest of areas. I'm then going in with a paper stump to really push the pigment into the tooth of the paper and to kind of create some softer strokes so there aren't as many harsh lines. A great tip is when you are placing down your darkest colours is to add a thin layer rather than put a ton of pigment down, because then you'll be able to go over it with light colours a lot easier. If you have a lot of pigment on the page, then you may find that you don't get very clean lines on top of it. To make a start on the eye, I'm going in with some of the colours that I see in the reference photo. So these are things like oranges, some yellows and a little bit of green around the pupil area. I'm also using a brown around the edge of the iris, between the black and orange, because those two colours can look a little bit muddy when they're mixed together. So the brown kind of just acts as a nice transition colour. I have a feeling I'm going to say Irish every time I say iris now. And then darkening the black around the eye just to have a little bit more contrast between the lighter colours and the darker colours. To make the eye look 3D, I'm going in with some light yellow in the centre of the iris, and then, I made it through that time, and then adding a white highlight at the top of the eye. This really just brings the eye to life and makes it look a lot more realistic. I'm also just adding some light blue to the highlighted white area, as a lot of the time the sky is actually reflected in the eye, so it makes it look a tiny little bit blue. So I'm also going to just add that grey underneath on the bottom eyelid as well, and kind of just place it in little areas. This kind of just makes it look a little bit almost kind of glossy and a little bit wet. And then I'm just going to keep adjusting the colours. This is something that just you kind of go throughout the process. You just keep adjusting the colours as you need to. For the base of the white fur area, I'm going to use some grey. If you go straight in with white, you might find that you can't really get much detail because it's all white. So instead, using colours like grey are a really good base to work from. If it's starting to look a little bit dull, you can actually add some warmer pink tones or some blue tones in there, which will give it a bit more life to the white area. There are actually quite a few different colours in white fur, it's not just white. I'm then going to go in with some orange and some kind of dark reddy browns for the base layer of the orange fur, and again really push this pigment into the paper so I can add the fur detail easily on top. To start adding some fur texture, I'm going to add some black hairs to the dark areas of the fur. Once we go in with the lighter colours, some of these hairs will actually be seen and it will just look a little bit more realistic. This is the part where the fur actually starts to look a bit nice and soft as opposed to how it has been so far. And we're just going to keep building up the layers and just give it a really nice realistic finish. So going in with some lighter orange, start layering the fur strokes on top of the orange fur. When you are creating fur, it's actually really important that you go in the direction of the fur and also pay attention to how short or long the hair is. For example, the nose area actually the hairs tend to be a lot shorter than the rest of the body. In these fur strokes, make sure that you go into some of the dark areas to make it look like almost like the fur is layered on top of each other. It'll just give it a really nice look to it. So now it's time to add the white fur. This is really going to make it stand out more and have a lot more contrast. When adding the white fur, try to add some nice flowy hairs and go into some of the dark areas as well. There are some areas that are lighter and more white than others, so make sure that you place more pigment in the lightest areas and it will give a little bit more dimension to the fur. We're now adding the final layers where we'll just add the lightest lights to the entire piece and just keep adjusting where we need to. Using the lightest yellow, I'm going to add another layer, but I'm just going to keep the fur strokes a little bit scattered so some of the dark areas will shine through, so we don't take away some of the layers that we've just built. And lastly, I'm just going to add a couple of light blue hairs in the black fur, as again the sky will reflect into the fur but giving it a slightly blue look. The final touches are kind of just keeping on adding more white to the lightest areas in the piece and adding some really nice like natural flyaway hairs. And then you are done. Let me know in the comments section below if you have any questions or if you would like any other tutorials. I am thinking about doing some more beginner friendly tutorials, but just let me know what you think and what will be useful to you. If you enjoyed this video, please click the subscribe button and the notification bell and enjoy the rest of your day.